If you love dark, slow-burn single-dad romances filled with restrained desire, quiet proximity, and the kind of intimacy that grows unbearable when two people are forced to stay close without touching, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss the next story. The beach house is quieter than Daniel expects. Too quiet. It sits alone at the edge of a narrow stretch of coast, pale wood weathered by salt and time, windows facing an endless gray-blue horizon. No neighboring houses. No voices. Just wind, waves, and the soft creak of a place that has learned how to stand by itself. Daniel arrives just after noon, suitcase in one hand, laptop bag in the other. He's 40, broad-shouldered, still carrying the posture of someone who learned to stay alert, even when nothing is happening. The ocean air hits him immediately, cool and clean, and for a moment, his chest tightens with something that feels like relief and grief tangled together. He tells himself it's just the change in scenery. This is supposed to be simple. A 3-week consulting contract. One location. One client representative. Minimal interaction. Maximum focus. He unlocks the door and steps inside. The house smells faintly of wood polish and sea salt. Clean. Sparse. Intentional. A long shared table sits in the center of the open living space. 2 workstations already set up on opposite ends. One bedroom door is closed. The other is open, sunlight spilling across neatly folded linens. Daniel sets his back down and exhales slowly. Then he hears movement behind him. You must be Daniel. He turns. She's standing just inside the doorway, one hand resting on the frame, the other holding a folder against her chest. White, early 30s, barefoot like she forgot shoes were necessary. Her hair is loose, slightly damp, as if she's come in from the beach recently. She's wearing a soft sweater and fitted shorts, casual in a way that feels deliberate. Her eyes meet his calmly. I'm Elise, she says. Looks like we'll be sharing the house. Daniel nods once. Daniel. There's a pause. Not awkward. Measuring. I took the room on the left, she adds. Hope that's okay. Fine, he says. His voice comes out lower than he expects. They stand there a second longer than necessary before she steps aside to let him pass. From the start, they establish rules. Work hours. Shared kitchen use. No personal interruptions. They don't say no attraction, but it hangs between them anyway. Elise works quietly, efficiently. She doesn't hover. She doesn't fill silence. She types with steady rhythm, occasionally glancing out toward the water like she's checking the time by the tide instead of a clock. Daniel tells himself not to notice the way her legs tuck beneath her chair when she leans forward, or how she smells faintly of citrus soap and salt, or how the quiet seems thicker when she's in the room. He's here to work. The first week passes in controlled distance. They share coffee in the mornings without conversation. Eat separately, though always at the same table. Sometimes their hands brush when reaching for the same mug or document. Each time both of them pause. Neither apologizes. At night, the ocean grows louder. Daniel lies awake in his room, staring at the ceiling, listening to waves strike the shore in slow, rhythmic patterns. He tells himself he's just adjusting to the noise. But then he hears her door open softly across the hall. Footsteps. Bare. Unhurried. He closes his eyes. The second week changes things. A storm rolls in suddenly one afternoon. Dark clouds swallowing the horizon. Rain battering the windows hard enough to blur the world outside. The power flickers once, twice, then cuts out entirely. Elise looks up from her laptop. Well. Daniel stands. I'll check the breaker. They end up in the utility closet together, the narrow space forcing proximity neither comments on. The beam of his phone flashlight cuts across her face, catching the curve of her cheek, the way her lips part slightly when she exhales. Any luck? She asks quietly. Not yet. Thunder cracks overhead. Elise's shoulder brushes his arm. She stills. So does he. Neither moves away. When the power finally returns, the moment passes, but it doesn't disappear. That night, they sit together on the couch for the first time. Candles lit, the storm easing outside. They don't touch. Their knees hover inches apart. Elise breaks the silence. You don't talk much about yourself. Daniel watches the flame flicker. There's not much to say. That's never true, she says gently. He swallows. I was married. Had a daughter. Lost both. The words fall heavy and final. Elise doesn't reach for him. She doesn't soften her voice. I'm sorry, she says simply. That kind of loss changes how close you let people stand. Daniel meets her eyes. Yes, he says. After that, the tension shifts. Not sharper, deeper. They begin taking walks along the beach in the evenings, not planned, just happening. Bare feet in cold sand. Wind tugging at clothes. Conversations that drift from work to memory to silence. One night, Elise stops walking and looks at him. You're always careful, she says. Like you're afraid wanting something will cost you again. Daniel doesn't answer immediately. I am, he admits. She nods. Me too. The third week breaks them. It happens slowly. Shared meals that turn into lingering conversations. Late nights working side by side at the long table, shoulders nearly touching. The heat of her presence becoming impossible to ignore. One evening, Elise reaches across him to grab a document. Her body brushes his fully this time. Her breath catches. So does his. Daniel grips the edge of the table, knuckles whitening. Daniel, she says softly. If this is too much. He turns toward her. It's the first time he doesn't pull back. The kiss is slow, uncertain, deep with restraint. His hand hovers at her waist, waiting for permission. She gives it by leaning into him. They break apart quickly, both breathing hard. That shouldn't have happened, Daniel says. I know, Elise replies. Neither believes it. They don't sleep together that night. They lie awake in separate rooms, ocean roaring, bodies aching with awareness. The next day, Elise packs her things. Daniel watches from the doorway, chest tight. You're leaving early, he says. She nods. I don't trust myself to stay. He steps closer. I don't trust myself to let you go. The confession hangs between them. Elise exhales slowly. Then don't. They make love that night with deliberate slowness. No rus. No desperación. Just hands learning, mouths exploring. Bodies moving together like something rediscovered rather than claimed. After, Elise rests her head against his chest. You're still a single dad, she murmurs. Always, he says. She smiles. Then let me love the man that made you. When the contract ends, neither pretends it was temporary. The beach house empties, but something follows them home. And Daniel knows this truth now. Sometimes love doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it waits, until you finally stop holding back. What Daniel doesn't expect is how quiet the leaving feels. The beach house empties slowly. Elise packs with the same calm precision she worked with, folding clothes, organizing documents, moving through the space like she's memorizing it one last time. Daniel lingers in doorways, pretending to check emails he hasn't opened, listening to the soft sounds of her presence because he isn't ready for them to stop. They don't talk much that morning. Not because there's nothing to say, but because everything feels too fragile to rush. It's Elise who finally breaks the silence. You know, she says, standing by the window, ocean stretching endlessly behind her. I followed you here thinking this would just be work. A temporary assignment. A place to hide from my own life for a while. Daniel watches her reflection in the glass. And now I don't want to hide anymore. The admission lands softly but decisively. Daniel steps closer. Not touching yet. Still learning when closeness is invitation instead of pressure. Neither do I, he says. But I don't know how to do this halfway. Elise turns to face him fully. Then don't. The simplicity of it nearly breaks him. They don't rush back into bed. Instead, they take the long way toward each other. Talking, sitting together on the floor with coffee gone cold. Sharing stories that never felt safe enough to tell before. Elise tells him about her past. About a relationship that taught her how to disappear inside herself. About being wanted without being seen. About mistaking intensity for intimacy. Daniel listens the way he always does. Fully, quietly, with a steadiness that makes her feel held without being claimed. He tells her about the nights after his daughter died. About the way silence used to scream. About how becoming a single dad didn't end when he lost her. It just changed shape. Became heavier. More careful. More afraid to reach. I learned how to protect everything, he admits. Except myself. Elise reaches for his hand then. Not urgently. Not cautiously. Just openly. You don't have to protect yourself from me. The touch grounds him. That night they make love again. Slower than before, deeper with less hesitation. Daniel takes his time learning the curve of her body like it's something precious instead of urgent. Elise kisses the scar near his collarbone and doesn't ask questions. She understands that some things don't need explanation to be honored. Afterward, they lie tangled together. Ocean breathing outside the walls. Stay with me tonight, Elise murmurs. Daniel doesn't hesitate. I already am. Morning comes gently. Sunlight spills across the bed, catching dust motes in the air. Elise wakes first and studies Daniel's face while he sleeps. The lines of exhaustion softened, his expression unguarded in a way she hasn't seen before. She realizes something then. He trusts her. The realization feels heavier than desire. When Daniel wakes, Elise is still there, tracing idle patterns on his chest. You're thinking, he says. She smiles faintly, about how easy it would be to pretend this was just a moment. And how impossible that feels now. They talk about logistics next. Not romantic, not dramatic, real. Where Elise will go next. Where Daniel's work might take him. What staying actually looks like instead of what it promises. They don't make grand vows. They make plans. Small ones at first. A week together after the contract ends. A shared city halfway between their lives. A pace that doesn't require either of them to disappear. The beach house door closes behind them late that afternoon. Daniel pauses on the porch, keys in hand, looking back one last time. Elise waits beside him, not rushing him, not pulling him away from the past he's finally learned how to carry instead of bury. You okay? She asks. He nods slowly. Yeah, I think I am. They drive away together. Weeks later, the quiet follows them, but it feels different now. Daniel rents a small place near the coast. Elise spends mornings working beside him, afternoons walking the shoreline, evenings cooking meals that feel intentional instead of lonely. Daniel notices how easily she settles into his life, not filling space that belonged to someone else, but creating something new beside it. One evening, as they sit on the balcony watching the sun sink into the water, Elise leans into him and whispers, "You don't hold back anymore." Daniel exhales, pressing his lips to her hair. I got tired of surviving. She tilts her head up, eyes dark with emotion. Good. That night, they move together with familiarity now, not learning but choosing. Daniel realizes something as Elise curls into him afterward, her body warm and trusting against his. He isn't afraid of wanting anymore. He isn't afraid of losing, because love didn't take anything from him this time. Gave something back. And for the first time since becoming a single dad with no one left to hold, Daniel understands that letting himself be touched, truly touched, was never a weakness. It was the bravest thing he's ever done.